up your engine! Now people are always asking me, hey, I want to save some money getting a car. Maybe I'll get a Hyundai Sonata. Okay, here's analysis of a 2002 Hyundai Sonata with the V6. The good, the bad, and the predominantly ugly of it. Now to start out with, you can see, I gotta have a stick here because these props broke years ago. So get yourself a stick if you have one of these, because those are gonna break. It's a heavy hood. It also has a dead battery. So we gotta hook up my jumper, and it's so bad, it's warning it's dead. So I have to go and push both of these buttons for about 3 seconds. Now it says ready, so we can start it. And as we go inside, we'll start it up. As you can hear, and if you're inside you can feel it shaking, doesn't run that great. Check engine lights on. And it says it has 120,000 miles. But in reality it's got a bunch more because the odometer hasn't worked for years. So who knows what the real mileage is. Maybe later my scan tool will tell me. But overall, not such a great car. And as you can see, one headlight works. The other headlight and parking light is out. Paint's all fading away. You can see they did a lousy job when they painted this car. It's all fading away. One taillight works. The other one's dead. Trunk is all faded and rusted. Pretty much the epitome of a junker. Customer just wants me to figure out how long can he drive it while he's looking for a good used Toyota or Honda. Now speaking of which, years ago, I had a customer. Bought Toyotas their whole life. They went and bought one of these things. Because they said, well, I had a 4-cylinder Toyota. Now, I could get this V6 Korean car much cheaper than a V6 Toyota, and it was luxury. It had leather seats and blah, 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 blah. And as you can see as they age, check it out. This is a 2002. The leather's all ripped and torn. Check out my wife's Lexus. It's also a 2002. Is the leather ripped and torn? No, it's in immaculate shape. You want quality? You pay for quality. She did go out and buy a Sonata with a V6 and leather seat. And in a few years, it proceeded to fall apart. So she went out and gave up and bought another Toyota. Spent the extra money. That was a lesson learned. It's a lesson you can learn without wasting your money. You can see low quality paint, low quality interior, and this one isn't running too hot. Listen to the exhaust. When the car has that lumping sound, that means it's misfiring. Let's take it for a ride to see how this clunker runs. And hopefully it won't strand me. In we go. You can see all kinds of lights around. ABS, brake, check engine lights on. So let's back up. Now it's really shaking. Power steering doesn't work. Well, I'm gonna need 2 hands to drive this baby. And as we attempt to take off, a lot of noise, a lot of shaking. It does stop though. Well, let's see how it accelerates. Here we go, full blast. Well, it doesn't accelerate too good. This is pedal to the metal. It's starting to go faster. Here we go. Wow, it's really moving now. Truthfully, it barely gets out of its own way. And man, with no power steering, you gotta pull on that wheel to take corners. A true junker in motion. You can hear the rattle. The catalytic converter's going out too. Now this may have been a luxury car at some point in time, but now it is a junker. So let's hook up the old scan tool. We'll see how bad it actually is, and nothing would surprise me. So here we go. Let's see how bad this thing is. We shall diagnose it. Auto scan. Here we go. See how many trouble codes this thing has. Not looking good. The engine already has 4. Automatic transmission has 1. Now this is an older car. It's a 2002, so it won't have all the data the newer ones do. But let's check out what the engine faults are. It needs a coolant thermostat, which is no big deal. The vehicle speed sensor doesn't work. That's why the odometer doesn't work. The fuel turbine bank 1 is way off, and the TCM request for mill-on signal isn't working. Could have a problem with the transmission control module. Go to the transaxle code and see what that is. Same code, the vehicle speed sensor, so that's why we're not getting any speed. But now let's go back to actual data, which is important. We'll go to the engine data. Nothing tremendously horrendous, but as I said, it's an old car. It doesn't give you as much data as a modern one will, so you can't do that much analysis. Let's check out some obvious things here. Mass airflow sensor's off a little bit. Nothing's totally outrageous, but when I get outside the car, man, does it stink. especially coming out the back. I can smell plastic, I can smell burning, I can smell sulfur. Catalytic converter system shot on us too. And as you can hear by the hissing, that means that the battery's shot, it's sulfated, it's bubbling like mad. So it needs a battery too. I mean, it needs all kinds of stuff. Now, I do have to say, a lot of people were fooled by these cars back in 2002. They wanted a more luxurious car, leather seats. They wanted a V6 instead of a 4-cylinder engine. With Toyota, that would have cost a lot more. So they bought one of these Korean cars. Every single one of my customers, it bit them in the rear end. They didn't hold up as well. If this was a Toyota Camry V6, the leather seats would still be in good shape. The car would probably be running like a clock. Not running like a pile of junk like this thing is. Now this thing's got electronic power steering. That doesn't work anymore. Just typical. The quality wasn't in these things to last over time. The electrical system's gone out. This whole side headlight, parking light doesn't work. Neither does the back side. Got some kind of wiring problem. Under the car, the catalytic converter shot, it's rattling and it smells. The AC doesn't work anymore. Now let's put on our thinking cap. This car was originally a $19,000 car, V6. Toyota Camry of the same year would have been about $3,000 more, $22,000. Hindsight is great, but let's look at it. Would you rather pay $3,000 extra and have a Camry that's still running like a top, seats are still pristine? Or this rolling pile of junk? Now my customer admits he's getting rid of this thing. He brought it over here for me to check out. The original plastic radiator has a hole in it, so I got to replace the radiator. I mean, you can kind of expect that kind of wear and tear. You can see the coolant coming out. It needs a new radiator, which in itself is no big deal. New ones from China work perfectly fine. It's just $100-something bucks. It's not that big of a deal. But the overall car, the quality just isn't there. When this thing was made, it had 181 horsepower. You could get a Camry that had 198 horsepower. Not only had more power, but it was a much better man engine than this thing is. You weren't getting a good deal even back then. What is $3,000 out of a car that's almost $20,000? Not that much differential if you plan on keeping them in the long term. And that's all I said about Korean cars. You know, buy a car, drive it 100,000 miles, it generally won't have any problems. But if you do sell it before 100,000 miles, you're gonna lose your shirt. Check out the resale value of Korean cars versus Toyotas and Hondas. The Toyotas and Honda resales are much higher because they're much better built. You're going to lose money either way. Yeah, you pay a little bit less for these, but when you sell them, you're going to get a lot less. And if you keep them too long, you end up with a rolling pile of junk like this. I had a customer just buy a 2002 Toyota Camry V6. Found a good one, paid $3,000 for it. Man, that thing runs like a clock. He is totally happy with it. This thing as it stands, or sits, catalytic converter. Misfires like mad. Leather seats are broken. No AC. Electronic power steering is broken. I wouldn't give $300 for this car. I can smell oil leaking and burning on the exhaust. I can see all kinds of problems. The quality's just not there in this vehicle. And it isn't like the guy didn't maintain it. Here's the engine oil. It's full. And it's pretty much whistle clean. He's taking care of that. It's just falling apart on its own. So if you're thinking about buying a used Hyundai Sonata, my advice is pay hardly nothing for them because, hey, they don't hold up over time. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Madman says, my sister-in-law wants to get a Crapster, town and country, because they're cheap. Are there any alternatives I could suggest? All right. Yeah, they're cheap because they're junk, you know? I've had customers buy them in the past, and they get a junker Chrysler town and country. If they only paid like $800 or something, sometimes they drive them 2 or 3 years, and yeah, the electric windows won't work, the AC will break and stuff. Lots of stuff can go wrong. Sometimes they keep driving them a while, and they go. I mean, if the transmission ever craps out, you junk it. You're not going to spend $3-4 grand fixing the transmission. The engines are pretty reliable. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about that. And if you don't want all the creature comforts to work that won't work because it's too old and it's a Chrysler, you can get one cheap enough. Now, the best van in the world is a Toyota Sienna, hands down. But you're generally never going to get one cheap unless you're in the right place at the right time. A customer of mine, he had one for like 12 years, and it only had 120,000 miles on it, Toyota Sienna, and he sold it to his lawn mowing guy for $1,500. What a deal that guy got. You know, and yeah, it had dings and stuff on it, but it's a big old van, and it still ran good at 120. I've seen him with 320,000. So you never know. It was the guy's lawn man. They had a relationship, and he felt sorry and wanted something he could put all his equipment in, and he sold him his Sienna van cheap enough. You could find one of those, but they're not easy to find, kind of like hen's teeth. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.